Majority Report wardrobe coordinator. This is a long one. Orlando is facing a water shortage because some of the liquid oxygen used to treat the water has been diverted to the hospital to treat unvaccinated COVID patients. This is horseshit. Every unvaccinated individual over 18 should be refused care immediately. I don't know about that.
I don't agree with that, but I mean, it is just a colossal, like, just almost like hard to comprehend state failure that, okay, we need to decide between safe water and oxygen at the hospital. And I mean, I just can't help but think of the context of the piddling around we're doing with moderates in Congress and their reconciliation bill, as if that's even remotely up to the task. I mean, the way I look at that is like, it's sort of good if we had been doing that as regular maintenance, those sorts of big bills. But as far as like catching up with just the rot in this system that, for instance, leaves Orlando with a boil water notice because it has to send oxygen to the hospital is just, I mean, it's outrageous.
Unbelievable. So I understand your rage, but don't necessarily agree with that. I understand this is probably illegal, but then give them the bare minimum, stick it to them in a tent outside with one nurse, and please stop blaming media indoctrination on their terrible behavior. They booed their cult leader when he said something they didn't like. They went on OAN and Newsmax after Fox said Trump locks the election. They go to whomever tells them what they want to hear. They make a conscious decision to be this way because they don't want to admit they were wrong on social media and swallow their stupid pride. Some people are just human garbage. I
also disagree that this is about the people, and I think you should have realized you were I mean, I understand the frustration, but like like the idea that Trump was doing his best to tell them to get the vaccine then is just not true. And we are bombarded with just a massive amount of bullshit in this country by capitalist media, and you should not blame people for being propagandists. I understand that people are annoying, but ultimately, like, you have to look at why they act certain ways in certain contexts and other ways in America under, you know, our capitalist media system.
And as leftists, on principle, we provide healthcare for everybody.
Yeah, I mean, that's yeah, I mean, the amount of ill will you'll cause by leaving family members. I got to tell you what, I have people who aren't vaccinated yet. I don't want them to be left out on the street either. I think, like, and it's definitely a problem when you're running negative on ICU beds, and I understand that, but that's also a problem with austerity in the system in general, right? Like, we're going to have to be able to deal with disease in this country. Just how big the world's getting, and we're like, that's the thing with like Cuomo, right? The cutting hospital capacity right before this is just a recipe for deaths on a large scale.
So again, totally sympathize with the frustration, but
fundamentally there's nothing productive in figuring out how this is individual people's fault.
Yep.
Like, and how we can make this the fault of people far removed from power. There's just nothing besides an emotional release, maybe.
Yeah, no, actually, you were talking about vaccines. Anthony Rizzo of the Yankees, actually, who's a cancer survivor, I don't know if you saw this, he said that he wanted to see more data on the vaccines. And presumably he's a high-risk individual given that he's a cancer survivor, and he got COVID. And so I think there's just like a lot of, hopefully the FDA's approval of this. Like, I don't know. I just think like at this point, these people are anti-vax, and like I hope they don't get sick, but I have very little like sympathy for their act in terms of like their reasoning. Mm-hmm. And I think indulging this reasoning and not calling it out for what it is like kind of dangerous.
Well, I will say this. There are two people I know, not particularly close, but someone in my life is trying to convince them to get vaccinated. And he's found that the full FDA approval has been effective with these. They're not like anti-vax on principle, but they're just like ignorant about the pandemic, which is crazy. And so hopefully, like, that provided me with a small amount of hope, but I think that's just a sliver of people who are not vaccinated yet, who are actually like, this is moving the needle for them, you know?
Yeah, I agree. And there's hearing the athletes' takes on this as well is sort of shocking. But I mean, yeah, I'm hopeful. I have a friend who, I'm hopeful I've offered him opportunities to take him to get vaccinated and etc. I hope I can get him vaccinated.
The Chris Lapaco, drunks don't get liver transplants. People can't smoke to be eligible for lung transplants. I know we want everyone to get health care, but we also want people to have clean drinking water. Furthermore, unvaccinated people are restricting other people from having access to health care by clogging up hospitals. That's true. They've been poisoning the air, and now they're poisoning the water. Enough is enough. No entry to hospitals without proof of vaccination. Boom. Again, I mean,
that might feel good to say. I just don't think it's good policy.
I agree. I agree. And I also don't think it's moral.
The purpose of a hospital should be to treat people, not to send messages about, politics and where you should get your news from.
Yeah. Everybody just, there's principles in this country. It's the same thing for or there's principles on the left. It's the same thing for the death penalty. Do I think this mass murderer or this horrible person in some specific case should be killed? If it was up to me, or I don't even know, because I hate bloodshed no matter what. But no, you apply a principle in terms of building a more equitable society universally, and it doesn't matter how ignorant people are and what their choices are. Because
I just think focusing on the ignorance of the average person is a recipe to be a reactionary. I just don't see the upshot of it that leads to a liberatory politics in any sort of path.
Folks, there's more of what you've just saw where that came from. That's if you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you. Really, thank you.